Hello everybody, I'm going to be going over how to actually put everything together into a single scene to start testing the game capability that we have so far. And we'll be doing more later certainly. Alright, so first step is just Command N to create a new scene. This is going to be for everything, so I'm going to make a 3D scene. Creates a node 3D. I'm just going to rename that descriptively, maybe something like game. And I am going to drag the scenes that I've created with my different puzzle pieces and my frame, and just zooming out so I can see a little bit better. While they're not placed exactly right, you can see that with the default location, just looking at the transform values here, 0, 0, 0, the height is at the perfect location for all of the pieces once they're placed. But I don't want them to start in the middle here, and I certainly don't want them to start at the correct height. So I'm going to do a little bit of moving around. So I'm going to put this piece off to one side. I'm going to move maybe over here and over here. Something like that. All right. And I need to make sure that they're not actually at 0 for the transform as far as the puzzle pieces go, the ones that are moving. And I also need to make sure they're not float numbers, that they're actually integers. So I'm just going to change this to -7, 2.7 for the height, so that when the pieces are placed, the pieces that are still moving are high enough that they're not going to collide. And then 2 just to get to a whole number or an integer. Same thing on the other two pieces. Just going to make sure that I'm using integers. And 2.7 for the y-axis. And one more to go. All right, that's looking good. Now, if I try to preview the game now, if I press Command R, oh, it's going to ask me to save. Command R opens a preview window. Now, there's a problem because it's just gray and it just shows the current scene, but there's no camera, there's no light that's actually set up, so it's not going to show anything. The light over here, it's just for a preview so that you can see what's going on without necessarily adding a light, but we do need one. So I'm going to click on the root, plus, I'll start with adding a camera, and if I change the view to 2 viewports, I can actually see where the camera is looking when I check this option here. Now, I'm going to want to pull up something about like that. I'm going to use the transform values, so -90, and definitely higher for the y-axis. And I just want to make sure that this is high enough that I can see all of my puzzle pieces inside of the boundary. So go like that, and then just move this one piece a little bit over so it's inside of the view of the camera. And again, I'm just going to make sure that those are whole numbers. All right, so that looks good for the camera view. I'm going to add a light, and if I just search for light, I can add a directional light 3D. Oh, and I should be careful what I have that connected to. I'm just going to grab it over the game because I don't want the light moving when the other pieces are moving. So I have my directional light. I'm just going to zoom a little bit more in. You can see it was added over there. Now the directional light is like a really far light source like the sun, so I'm going to just adjust the angle, and I don't want it straight down so that it's shining in this particular case, but you certainly can do what you want. Perhaps something like that, and that's looking good. So I am just going to save that. And now, when I press Command R to preview, I have the preview window open. Let's test things out. So clicking and moving on the pieces is working. Only the piece that moves is actually changing. You can see the print statement down below for the position is displaying its whole numbers except for the y-axis, so that is perfect. Now, rotating is not working, so I need to take a look at the script. So I'm just going to close out, switch over to the script tab, and here we have rotate clockwise. And first thing I want to just check is that the names of the input actions are correct compared to what I set in the input map. And we can see I should actually have a dash instead of an underscore. So I'm just going to take a moment to correct that. And that is because I was copying and pasting from a script that was using different input names. All right, so let's just save and Command-R again. So Q and E is now rotating, so that is working perfectly. If I press the space bar, the pieces are getting placed. If I miss, you can see that the height is going to be a little bit off there. Yep, so it looks like I might have just R to restart, so that's looking good. That's not actually the place that's going to need to be. I think that is a little bit off. So I'm going to need to play around with figuring out what is actually the right position for things to get placed properly. I think I did have the piece lined up, but I think that the colliders are the exact same size, so it's not actually fitting. So I'll need to do a little bit of correcting and a little bit for that to work. But otherwise, everything is working as expected. So I am ready to move on. I do want to mention, if you have things that aren't working, definitely add print statements in strategic places in the code. I mean, make sure the inputs are all named properly, but when you're adding a print statement, you can just specify different properties, like global position or whatever it happens to be, commas in between each property, and if you need to have a string because you have some sort of message, just put quotes around it. And that will definitely help with the troubleshooting. And if you get to a point where you don't need it anymore, you can just comment it out or remove it altogether. All right, so that is it for this step.